Tony Goulet, Chief Executive, Global Initiatives, friends, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, a good morning. And thank you for inviting me to share this platform with so many other eminent and great speakers and contributors. So how should I approach this? So how should I approach it to make it something that actually answers the yes on the previous question? Because that was my initial speech or talks is all about. The theme is, for this year, is, as you all know, transformation, growth, and the green environment. And I guess we all, and following yesterday and probably today as well, the theme couldn't be more applicable, especially in the views of what's happening around us right now, whether it's natural disasters in our neighborhood, mounting debts a little bit further away, or disappearing resources all over the world. That going on, and in the meantime we all know that the combination of these events sends crashing waves of and unsettling investors worldwide, creates market instability. The market forces don't really know what to do and how to do things, and that creates even more instability in the world right now. And this is not good for what we're here to talk about. But despite all this, the world continued to grow even faster, demanding even more of the resources we can hardly provide for it as is. Today, Asia, and where we are right now, is where the world's biggest population lives, and where economies are rapidly changing and expanding, and we follow that in so many different ways. In less than 10 years, by 2020, the middle classes in our region, in Asia, is expected to balloon to 1.5 to 1.7 billion people. It's more than triple the number we have today. In another 10 years, by 2030, the middle classes of Asia are expected to become the next global consumers and assume the traditional role of the US and European middle classes. Can you imagine the dynamics that needs and the needs that comes out of this? What will we do with such a need that comes out of this gigantic sizes of middle classes and their needs to consume things? Are we really ready and prepared to deal with what needs to come? Just to take a snippet of information is that within the next 10 years, here in Asia, we need $8 trillion, $8 trillion just of investment for infrastructure. It's an amazing amount of money, never seen before, never dealt with before, to create. And those $8 trillion is only for water and sanitation, infrastructure, telecommunication, and transportation. So 4 of all the different. We have never dealt with that before. And that's a big challenge. I wish I therefore could look out at you and look around the room and ask, who's responsible for the future? Unfortunately, I will find none of you taking that responsibility. Neither will I, but I will chip in. I will do my part to it. And one part is, of course, why we're here. We need to convince, and I don't need to convince you, you are already converted, but we need to convince a lot of other people in the importance of responsible business and sustainable investments. But how do all of us play a part in keeping the economy going at the same time we're trying to change behavior, encouraging greater uptake of the sustainability practices in our community, while we at the same time trying to cope with the current needs and immediate needs? Well, go back to a favorite, and that is John Wesley, who lived in the 16th century. He outlined in a speech, and the speech was the use of money and the basic tenets of social investing. It's quite an interesting thing, being 300-400 years ago. And that is not to harm your neighbor through your business practice. That fundamentally established the investment approach with reference to environment, social, and governance factors. the choice and management of investments. It's quite an interesting way of speaking. I like that. And staying in the UK, and many of you are familiar with another development that business is involved in. And 30 years ago, a group of business leaders formed in the UK something called the Business in the Community Initiative. They recognized that businesses play an integrated role in building trust and cohesion with communities. This initiative is now a leading charity in the UK with over 850 members, encouraging businesses to operate sustainably and successfully. Business in the Community, which I think is a role model in many ways, also launched their Corporate Responsibility Index to provide UK a benchmark for corporate responsibility. Currently, more than 350 companies use the CR index to scrutinize and look how they measure their responsibility business practice. A very good example how actually business start creating change. But let us not be confused. I'm still standing here as a representative of market forces. The primary responsibility for companies is to make money. But there are evidence of a growing number of consumers, and I think that's where we have one of our biggest hopes, who want to match their ethical environmental values with how they purchase goods and how they make decisions. You've probably talked about it already on this conference. You will talk about it again. The power of the consumers. They are the strongest force for us as running companies. And therefore, in today's climate, corporates have to demonstrate their ability to look beyond self-gain and self-interest, that their sustainability efforts are well aligned to the business strategies, to the communities and environment that they are operating in, to secure confidence of their investors. And what I hope we will change is that the real self-gain and self-interest will be to work with sustainability, not the other way around. And I've been told by so many companies again and again that the benefits of sustainability initiatives measured by their P&L is so difficult to quantify, especially so when sustainability strategies also increases short-term cost for the companies. And measurement needs, and we as an exchange, we need to support how we measure things. I think there is already tools out there. One measurement is, of course, that is developed to see how you can quantify the material impact of long-term sustainability strategies. One example, I think many of you are aware of, is the Environmental Defense Fund, a New York-based non-profit organization. And they work with private equity groups, the large ones in the US, the KKRs, the Carlyle, the Oak Hill Capital Partners and others, to develop a tool that allows private equity investors to integrate social and environmental factors into their investment process. So there is tools. Few companies can today argue that there is not measurement and tools out there. And I think we all know that the right investments will always pay off well, giving us a good yield. But having said so, companies are continuously struggling, and we need to be aware of it, to explain to analysts and investors the environmental and social responsibility and profitability, and that they are not mutually exclusive, that they are actually inclusive. And that maybe is one of the biggest challenges, and hopefully you here will talk a lot about it and help me and others to be stronger on this. The immediate challenge for us is therefore how we can be better at explaining the long-term value of sustainability, such as investors are able to understand it and take faster actions. Investors have a tendency not to make the right decision of the right reason fast enough. But we as corporates are normally the responsible for it. In recent decades, and we have seen it again and again, we've seen many companies suffered under attacks on their business practices due to the lack of communication, the lack of explaining and telling what the story is all about. And normally when they suffer, there is an issue of engagement with a society or community, or maybe in later years also ethical practices. And the material risk that comes out of this do not only affect the company's reputation. We have seen actually a number of companies over the last few years that haven't been good at this, and that they also hit their bottom line and even their long-term sustainability as a company and survival. I think we need to be much better taking those examples and show that that is a real reason why we need to do things differently. In fact, companies that do not manage their sustainability or reputation are also subjecting themselves to a very much bigger operational risk. And better manage that risk begins with detecting and identifying the possible routes to those risks. The choice for companies today is not if, but how they should manage their sustainability threats and activities. Should you see it as a risk to be managed, or maybe a novel way to open up new business opportunities while you at the same time create value to your stakeholders, being close or far away? And therefore, when you take all this and the changes you're well familiar with, what do we as an exchange do about it? And what can we do about it? There is no doubt that over the years, stock exchanges have been recognized and taken on the responsibility as the custodians of corporate governance and corporate responsibility. But remember, we are only the custodians. As an exchange, SGX has the responsibility and also the ability to efficiently mobilize capital from all over the world to help to distribute this as efficiently as we ever can to the companies listed with us or on the way to be listed with us. Companies that needs those funds to grow, prosper, and add a lot of value to not only to their company itself, but to the community and the country they operate in. And the more efficient we are building these capital markets, the more efficient we are as an exchange, the better we can be in helping the right companies. And this is the big challenge we have. Many of you look at us as saying we need tougher rules or we need tougher regulation. Well, we need that as part of it, but it's even more important that we get a very efficient capital market. Efficient in the way that money and investors invest in the right companies and immediately sell the shares they have in the companies that is not doing right. If we can have a very efficient capital markets, the good companies will be higher valued and the not so good companies will have a lower value. Capital market will sort it out, who behaves and who don't. It will make it, capital markets will give the cost of capital, and the cheaper capital companies have, the easier they have to invest, and capital markets could make that happen. And that's what we're here to do. So the more efficient we can get the exchanges working, the easier it is to buy and sell companies, the more information we can get out from companies, the more well-decided decisions, the more decisions made by investors that are really well analyzed will make the right decisions to go to support the company's need of capital. So that is our role. My primary role is therefore to make the capital markets more efficient so investors can buy and sell the right companies, put the right value on the right companies. But we are also a frontline regulator, and by being that, we need to work with the rules and regs as well. Corporate governance is not a luxury, but a necessity to maintain Singapore's position as one of the world's leading financial centers. So therefore expect of us that being a leading exchange, being a leading financial centers, we will also take a lead when it comes to these issues and these questions. We fully appreciate the necessity to maintain a platform that gives trust, veracity. The integrity of our markets and the companies listed with us or on their way to list with us is absolutely the center, but also the health and stability of our economy, not only for the country of Singapore, but for the region. And if we can build that, we also know that the investors will always rather go to a market that are safe and efficient. But we also learned over the year that the investors rather go to a market that have a purpose, that are purposeful, and therefore have a lot more companies that have a purpose. And it's a tough journey and we need to make it much shorter, much faster than many other markets. And in Asia, we are seeing an increasing number of global responsible investment firms coming in, and they are allocating more and more resources here. In addition, we see some regional financial institutions that are also monitoring sustainable investment issues and are slowly integrating such aspects into their investment policies. Important development that we are currently and always supporting. Responsible and sustainable investors are also on the lookout for or to engage companies of different kinds in different projects in order for them to meet their agenda. With the world moving forward and embracing this sustainability that I think we all know here will happen, it's just a question of how and when. This is a core foundation of the success of the capital markets, because this is a question of the long-term performance of the companies here. We therefore constantly urge our listed companies to review how they can better disclose and report their environmental, social and governance footprints. If you go back the last few years, we've seen us constantly adding more and more to it, and expect us to do that in the years to come. Rest assured, we know this is an integral part of what we do. So you should expect it of us, and we expect it of ourselves. We need to have, ultimately, a very transparent, a very well-disclosed business, and that needs to be the sort of part of a responsible business practice that we want to have here. So, from my perspective, to start your day, to kick off your day, we are well aware of it. We're well aware of the needs as a frontline regulator, what we have and what we need to do. But more importantly, we're here to build one of Asia's most efficient capital markets so that investments goes to the right companies, and those right companies are priced in the right way. There is no way faster to get sustainability onto the agenda. Thank you very much.